Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Andy. I hope you're doing really well wherever or whenever in the world that you are, whenever you're watching this. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you have a nice cozy cup of something to drink or a nice little snack to munch on while we talk about our 2024 reading goals. Now, I do feel like I'm a little bit behind. I'm a little late to the game in all of these beginning of year, end of year kinds of videos, but you know what they say, better late than never. So we're gonna embrace that mentality as we reflect upon how we did with our reading goals in 2023 and thinking towards the future. Also, just as a caveat, as I've been editing videos again, I'm noticing there's sometimes, I live near an airport and you can sometimes hear the airplanes in the background. So if you hear kind of like a low rumbling hum, it's the airplanes. I don't have a mic, like an external mic, so I'm sorry if it's distracting. I don't have a solution right now, but I've noticed it, so I just wanted to name it in case people are wondering like what the heck that was. I think there's a plane going by now. Can you hear it? Okay, anyways, I had a chance to rewatch my 2023 goals video. So I took some notes on what my goals were for 2023, what my reading goals were, and how I did. And so let's go through that now. The first one was to read 12 nonfiction books. I read 2. I only read 2 nonfiction. Now, I loved both of them. They were interesting and fantastic, opened my eyes to a new perspective, and I learned something new. So I loved them both. Fantastic reads, highly recommend, but it was not quite 12. Oh well, what can you do? You know what you can do? You make new goals for the new year. The second goal I had from 2023 was to DNF more books. I think I had it that I wanted to DNF at least 8. And I was close to this. I DNF'd 7 books this year, which was definitely more than the year prior. So like every year I get better at putting down books that are not bringing me joy and that I don't care for, instead of the completionist in me forcing me to read them. So I'm very proud of myself that we are making growth each year, but I didn't quite make this goal, but I think I'm still gonna count it as a win. My next reading goal from 2023 was to complete 8 fantasy series. I didn't come close to this at all. I caught up / read 2 fantasy series from last year. One was the Elvish trilogy by S.G. Prince. And that was a completely impulsive pick. I was just scrolling on Hoopla and I was like, sure. I was feeling kind of slumpy and unmotivated. I was relatively intrigued by the premise, and so I picked it up, and the trilogy was fine. I enjoyed it, but I wouldn't go out of my way to recommend it to people. I also read all of the currently published books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series by Carissa Broadbent. They're great. I reread them throughout 2023, a really fun series. But you know what? I did read quite a few romance series. I think there's 4 of them that I read. I read the Brutal Birthright series by Sophie Lark. If I remember correctly, it's like a dark mafia romance. That's the premise. I read 2 Lisa Kleypas backlisted series. I read The Wallflowers and I read The Hathaways. And then I also read the Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. I devoured that and it was great. So even though I didn't read 8 fantasy series, I did catch up or complete 6 series. I don't know if that counts as a win, but it is progress, sort of. And so we're gonna leave it at that. My last goal from last year was to read outside my comfort zone. I wanted to read 5 horror books, 10 mysteries. Spoiler alert, woof, not close at all with that one. 3 science fiction books and 10 historical fiction books. I was not close at all to this. In 2023, got really, really slumpy, which means that for me, I reread a lot of old favorites and I really stuck to my comfort zone reads because I wanted to keep up the habit of reading. And so I was kind of desperate for several stretches throughout the year. And, a result of that is that I really did not read outside my comfort zone. I didn't read any horror. I read 2 mystery books. I read 1 science fiction and 5 historical fiction. So I think this was just a little overly ambitious for me, but that's okay. We've taken notes, we've lived, we've laughed, we've loved, we've learned, and now we've created new goals for 2024. There's a good mix, I think, in my 2024 goals. I have some goals that feel really reasonable and achievable, and then I have a few goals that are definitely more reach goals for me. Some of them are the same kinds of goals that I've made in years past, like DNFing and completing series, and then some of them are brand new goals. So let's go through them. Okay, my first goal for 2024 is to read 100 books. Now, for me, this is not an outrageous goal by any means. The last few years, I've been reading anywhere from like 110 to 180 books, kind of just depending on the momentum I build throughout the year. And so this is a relatively tame goal. I want to make sure that I take into consideration the fact that I get slumpy throughout the year. I feel like all of us get slumpy at one point throughout the year. And I want a little bit of freedom from that pressure of reading because I feel like I have to read, and trying my best to read when I'm wanting to read, and also reading books that bring me joy or teach me something new, or I find some fulfillment in one way or another, rather than just like reading just to read, I guess. So yeah, goal number 1, read 100 books. Okay, my second goal for 2024 is also a pretty reasonable, I think, fingers crossed, goal, and that is to read 6 nonfiction. So again, just taking into consideration, there's months that I'm gonna be slumpy, and I wanna pick up nonfiction that I'm excited to read, I'm curious to read, that are gonna bring something new to my life, to my learning, to my perspective on the world. So I wanna be a bit more selective, but just intentional about consuming some nonfiction content, whether that's, informational text, essay collections, memoirs, maybe some short story collections, poetry, depending on the themes or the content. So yeah, goal number 2 is to read 6 nonfiction. My next goal is in the realm of series. In 2024, I'd like to catch up or complete 5 fantasy series. Now, for me, I think I'm okay or feeling flexible whether they're purely fantasy or if they're fantasy romance. I'm okay to give myself a little bit of leeway, but I'll put on the screen the picture of my current fantasy series tracker. That's gonna be what I use to prioritize and guide my series reading for 2024. So these are the ones that are top of mind for me and the ones that I'd love to start, catch up on, or complete in 2024. So, we'll see how it goes. My next 2 goals are kind of the same, but just in different mediums, I guess. My 4th reading goal is that I'd love to read my Kindle TBR down to 0. Again, I'll put on the screen the picture that has my books I own list, so you can kind of see what I have left unread. So that's goal 4. Goal 5 is to read my physical TBR down to 0. So you'll be able to see both of those lists on the screen. They, again, feel relatively manageable. It's not like I have 200 plus books to read in these categories. Now, my audiobooks is a little bit different. I'm not gonna create a goal around those, but it's something I'll keep in the back of my mind. So anyways, wanting to read all of the books that I own on my Kindle and on my physical bookshelf. My next goal, this is not one that I have historically created a concrete number, like check a box kind of goal, but as I was reflecting on my reading from 2023, I noticed some trends. And one of the big ones that really stuck out to me was that because there were months where I was feeling really slumpy, I tended to read books that were very much in my comfort zone, or I was rereading past favorites just to, again, keep my habit of reading going. But the result of that is that I stopped prioritizing picking up authors who have a different lived experience than me. I really was not as intentional about reading diversely as I have been in years past. And I hate that for me. I'm so disappointed in that. And so I wanted to bring some awareness back into reading diversely. And so for this goal, my hope is that by the end of the year, 50% of the authors that I pick up will have some kind of diverse perspective, lived experience, identity, something different from myself. So whether that's a BIPOC author, a neurodivergent author, an author from the LGBTQIA plus community. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. There's like infinity kinds of differences. The reason that I don't typically make this goal like a formal kind of quantitative goal is one, that I recognize not all of these identities are going to be disclosed by authors, nor are they going to be visible. And so I always feel a bit weary about tracking this because of that. And also, I feel like reading diversely and being mindful of consuming content from creators across all spans of life is just a way of being that I find really important. It feels more like an ongoing process, something that I'm always thinking about and always striving towards. So I again feel a bit like weird about having this be like a box that I get to check off, because that's not really the intent behind it. But I think because my purpose is really just to bring some intentionality back into my reading practices and the books that I'm picking up, I feel more comfortable creating this kind of goal. But that's kind of my caveat of why I don't typically create a goal like this, but I feel like it's really important moving into 24 because it was something that I really let slip last year, and I feel really disappointed by that, and I want to do better, and that's the whole purpose of goals. So rant over. My sixth goal is to read 50% of my authors with a diverse voice of some kind. My seventh goal is around DNFing, and we are going to continue this self-care practice because I love that for me. I think for 2024, I'd love to DNF at least 10 books. I'm making some upward momentum, some upward movement with how frequently I put books down that I don't care for, and I'd like to continue that trend. So last year, I think I said I wanted to DNF 8, and I nearly reached that. So this is feeling like a little bit of a reach goal, but one that I'm very motivated to complete because I need the completionist in me, that compulsion, to quiet down a little bit. And I want to prioritize books that I enjoy and that aren't going to make me feel slumpy. I can't let my hate fire fuel me to reading books that I wish I had DNF'd the whole time. I'm looking at you, Lady of Darkness. All right, my eighth reading goal for 2024 is to read outside my comfort zone. For this year, I just made more realistic benchmarks, I guess, for myself, but the same genres are still there. So I'm hoping to read 5 horror books, 5 mystery thrillers, 5 science fiction books, and then 5 historical fiction books. And yeah, similar to my reading diversely goal, I'm just wanting to read outside my comfort zone to help keep me out of reading slumps and to help bring some intentionality back into my reading. My last reading goal is one that I'm not sure I've ever tracked before, but it's something I think about a lot. So I figured, why not make a goal around this? So My 9th reading goal for 2024 is to read every day. I think that I do this, but I genuinely don't have any baseline data for this. So this goal is going to kind of act as an information gathering kind of goal, because like, I love to read every day. Do I read every day? I have no idea. So we're gonna go into this goal with curiosity and openness and just see how it goes. You know, see if I read 366 days, because this year's a leap year, I think. So amazing. More reading for me. All right, those are my 2024 reading goals. I feel pretty good about them. I think I have a good mix, like I said earlier, of reach goals and goals that feel realistic for me. Yeah, and I'm really hopeful, I'm tentatively optimistic that I will meet all of these goals and or surpass them. Fingers crossed. Really, the only goal that I'm like side-eyeing over here is my series goal. I struggle so much with completing and catching up on series. And why? I love starting series. I just can't seem to find the motivation to finish any of them. Is that relatable? Does that happen to any of you guys, where you start a series, you start a million series because you get excited about new characters and a new world and a new magic system, and then you're like, this first book was great, I'm definitely gonna continue on, and then it's 5 years later and you've still only read the first book? Or is that just me? No, I'm rambling a little bit. I'd be curious to hear what reading goals you have for yourself in 2024. What are your reach goals? What are the goals that you feel really confident you'll be able to achieve? Yeah, that's all I got for you guys today. Happy New Year's, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Bye.